She thought the Instagram notification was harmless, just another story from her husband's colleague. But in that penthouse window, Sarah saw the truth, his watch, his body, his lies. 7 months pregnant, married to a billionaire, living in Manhattan luxury. She thought the betrayal was the worst. She was wrong. Her husband's secret wasn't just infidelity. It was a plan to take her baby, her sanity, and her freedom. This is the story of one woman who fought back against a predator who believed he owned her. Before we begin, hit like if you're ready for a gripping ride and subscribe, because stories like this don't tell themselves. Let's dive in. The baby shower was supposed to be perfect. Sarah Mitchell Kane stood in the marble foyer of their Manhattan penthouse, 7 months pregnant and glowing in a cream silk dress, watching 30 of her closest friends celebrate the daughter she would soon hold. The laughter from the living room drifted down the hallway like music, mixing with the clink of champagne glasses and the rustle of expensive gift wrap. But Sarah's phone buzzed with an Instagram notification that would destroy everything. Victoria Cross had posted a new story. Sarah almost ignored it, but something made her tap the screen. The image loaded slowly, revealing a familiar view through floor-to-ceiling windows. The same windows from Marcus's private office upstairs, the same office he claimed to be using for important business calls. Sarah's breath caught. There, reflected in the window glass, was Marcus's distinctive Patek Philippe watch, the one she had given him for their first anniversary, the one he never took off. But Marcus was supposed to be in Boston. He had kissed her goodbye that morning, promising to return by evening for their baby shower. He had looked into her eyes and sworn he wouldn't miss celebrating their daughter. The video continued. Victoria's manicured hand traced lazy circles on bare skin. A man's chest came into view, a familiar constellation of freckles Sarah had kissed 1,000 times. Her husband's chest. Missing you already, baby. Victoria's voice purred through the phone speaker. Can't wait for tonight when she finally sees the truth. The phone slipped from Sarah's trembling fingers, clattering against the marble floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the penthouse, but the laughter from the living room continued, oblivious to the world crashing down around her. Sarah pressed her back against the wall, her swollen belly making it hard to breathe. 7 months of marriage. 7 months of carrying their child. 7 months of believing in forever while he made a fool of her 20 floors above her own baby shower. She retrieved her phone with shaking hands. The story was already gone, deleted as quickly as it had appeared. But the damage was done. The image burned in her memory like acid. Footsteps echoed from upstairs. Sarah heard Marcus's voice, low and urgent, probably on another call with another lie. She wanted to storm up there, to confront him, to scream until the windows shattered. Instead, she straightened her dress, took a deep breath, and walked back into the living room where her friends waited with gifts and congratulations for the family that no longer existed. "Sarah, honey, you look pale," her best friend Rebecca said, rising from the white leather sofa with concern in her eyes. "Are you feeling all right?" Sarah forced a smile. The same smile she had perfected through months of suspicious phone calls and late nights at the office. The same smile that had hidden her growing doubt and fear. "Just tired," she replied, accepting a glass of sparkling water. "The baby's been keeping me up." But inside, Sarah's mind was racing. Victoria Cross, the 24-year-old influencer with 2 million followers and a reputation for dating wealthy men. Sarah had seen her at Marcus's tech conferences, always lingering near the stage after his speeches, always finding reasons to approach him for photos and conversations. Marcus had dismissed Sarah's concerns. "She's just networking, baby, it's business." Now Sarah knew exactly what kind of business Victoria had been conducting. The baby kicked, a sharp reminder of what was at stake. Sarah placed her hand on her belly, feeling the life growing inside her. Their daughter deserved better than this. They both did. As her friends opened gifts and cooed over tiny pink dresses, Sarah began to plan. She was a former investigative journalist. She knew how to gather evidence, how to build a case, how to uncover the truth. But first, she had to survive the next few hours pretending her world hadn't just exploded. Marcus appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later, perfectly groomed in his navy suit, his smile bright and false. He kissed Sarah's cheek, his lips cold against her skin. "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Traffic from the airport was brutal. Sarah met his eyes and saw nothing but practiced deception. "Of course, darling. I'm just glad you made it." But behind her smile, a storm was building, and Marcus Kane had no idea what was coming. Sarah waited until 3 a.m. Marcus lay beside her, his breathing deep and regular, one arm possessively across her swollen belly, even in sleep. The irony wasn't lost on her. Moving carefully, she slipped out of bed and padded barefoot to Marcus's home office. The same office where Victoria had filmed her Instagram story. The same office where her husband had betrayed their marriage while she celebrated their daughter with friends. Marcus's laptop sat closed on his mahogany desk. Sarah knew his password. It was their wedding date, a detail that now felt like another cruel joke. She typed the numbers with steady fingers, surprised by her own calm. The screen illuminated, revealing Marcus's desktop. Sarah opened his messages first, her heart hammering as she scrolled through weeks of communication she had never imagined existed. The texts with Victoria were explicit, detailed, and devastating. They spoke of Sarah as if she were an inconvenience to be managed rather than a wife to be loved. Marcus called her clingy and boring since the pregnancy. Victoria responded with photos Sarah couldn't bear to look at and promises that made her stomach turn. But it was the date stamps that broke her. The affair had been going on for 4 months. 4 months while Sarah had been glowing with pregnancy, planning for their daughter, believing in their future. The worst message was from just 2 weeks ago. "Can't wait until after the baby comes." Marcus had written, "Once she's focused on being a mother, she won't notice what we're doing. Motherhood will keep her busy and out of our way." Victoria's response was a laughing emoji followed by, "Perfect. I've always wanted to be a stepmother to your heir. Maybe we can have our own babies too." Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her belly. Their daughter wasn't even born yet, and Marcus was already planning to sideline them both for his mistress and future children. She scrolled further, finding financial documents that made her blood freeze. Marcus had been moving money into offshore accounts for months, their joint savings, her trust fund from her grandmother, even the college fund they had started for their daughter, all of it flowing into untraceable accounts in the Cayman Islands. A folder labeled Contingency Plans contained draft divorce papers. Marcus had been planning this for weeks, laying the groundwork to paint Sarah as an unfit mother. The documents claimed she was emotionally unstable, financially dependent, and incapable of raising their child alone. The final blow came in Marcus's email drafts. A message to his attorney, never sent, but clearly rehearsed, "Sarah's become increasingly paranoid and irrational during her pregnancy. I'm concerned about her mental state and her ability to care for our child. We need to move quickly to establish custody arrangements that prioritize the baby's safety." Sarah sat back in Marcus's leather chair, the weight of betrayal crushing her chest. It wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated plan to destroy her and take their daughter. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victoria Cross, sent to Marcus but appearing on his laptop through message sync, saw the pregnant wife today at Starbucks. She looks so tired and sad. Poor thing has no idea what's coming. Can't wait until she's out of the picture for good. The attached photo showed Sarah from that afternoon, taken without her knowledge. She looked exhausted, her face drawn with the fatigue of late pregnancy. The image was cruel, invasive, and deeply violating. Sarah screenshot everything, her journalism training kicking in through the emotional devastation. Evidence. She needed evidence of everything before Marcus discovered her investigation. But as she worked, copying files and forwarding emails to a secure account, Sarah heard footsteps in the hallway. Marcus was awake and moving toward the office. She closed the laptop and slipped behind the door just as Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked around suspiciously, his eyes scanning the room. "Sarah," he called softly. "Are you in here?" She held her breath, pressed against the wall, her pregnant belly making it impossible to hide properly. But Marcus seemed satisfied the room was empty. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and retrieved a second phone Sarah had never seen before. "Baby, it's me," he whispered into the device. "No, she's sleeping. The plan is working perfectly. By next month, everything will be in place." Sarah listened to half a conversation that confirmed her worst fears. Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was planning to steal their daughter and destroy Sarah's life in the process. When Marcus finally returned to bed, Sarah remained hidden in the office, tears streaming down her face. She had found the truth, but the truth was more terrible than she had ever imagined. The billionaire she had married wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator who had been planning her destruction from the moment their daughter was conceived. And tomorrow, Sarah would have to pretend she knew nothing while planning her own survival. Sarah's hands shook as she poured Marcus's coffee the next morning, the ceramic mug nearly slipping from her fingers. She had slept 2 hours, her mind churning with the evidence she'd discovered. Marcus sat at their breakfast bar, scrolling through his phone with the casual indifference of a man whose world wasn't crumbling. "You're quiet this morning," he observed, not looking up from his screen. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" The endearment felt like poison in her ears. Sarah managed a weak smile. "Just tired. The baby was restless all night." Marcus replied absently. "You should probably see Dr. Williams about that. Insomnia during pregnancy can be dangerous for the baby." The concern in his voice sounded genuine, but Sarah now heard the manipulation underneath. Every suggestion, every worried comment, every piece of advice was designed to make her question her own judgment and stability. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, "Coffee date today. You seemed off yesterday, and I'm worried about you." Sarah typed back, "Can you come here instead? I need to tell you something." 20 minutes later, Rebecca Stone sat across from Sarah in the penthouse's living room, her dark eyes filled with concern. At 45, Rebecca was Sarah's closest friend and one of Manhattan's most successful divorce attorneys. If anyone could help Sarah navigate this nightmare, it was Rebecca. "Marcus is having an affair," Sarah said without preamble, "and it's worse than just cheating." She showed Rebecca screenshots from the night before, watching her friend's expression shift from surprise to disgust to professional calculation. Rebecca studied each image carefully, her legal mind processing the evidence. "This is substantial," Rebecca said finally. "The financial documents especially. Moving marital assets without your consent is serious. But Sarah, some of these messages suggest he's planning something more elaborate." "I know." Sarah's voice broke. "He wants to take our daughter and paint me as an unfit mother. He's been setting this up for months." Rebecca reached across the coffee table and took Sarah's hands. "Listen to me carefully. We need to move fast, but we need to be smart about it. Don't confront him yet. Don't let him know you've seen any of this. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, though the thought of pretending for even one more day felt impossible. Good. I'm going to start building a case immediately. With this evidence, we can not only protect you and the baby, but we can make sure Marcus faces consequences for what he's done. For the first time in 24 hours, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Rebecca was brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and completely on Sarah's side. Together, they could beat Marcus at his own game. There's something else, Sarah said. I think he's been drugging me. Rebecca's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? My prenatal vitamins. I've been taking the same brand for months, but lately I've been feeling foggy, tired beyond normal pregnancy fatigue. And look at this. Sarah showed Rebecca a message thread between Marcus and someone listed only as Dr. K. The mild sedative in her vitamins is working well. She's been much more compliant lately and hasn't questioned my late nights or travel schedule. Rebecca's face went cold. That's not just adultery and financial fraud. That's spousal abuse and drugging without consent. We're talking serious federal charges. The apartment door opened, and Marcus's voice echoed from the foyer. Sarah, I'm home early. Rebecca quickly helped Sarah delete the message thread from her phone screen and arranged herself casually on the sofa. When Marcus appeared in the living room, both women smiled warmly. Rebecca, good to see you, Marcus said, but Sarah caught the flash of annoyance in his eyes. He didn't like unexpected visitors, especially lawyers. Just checking on our mama, Rebecca replied smoothly. Sarah seemed a bit overwhelmed yesterday. Pregnancy hormones, Marcus said dismissively. Dr. Williams says it's completely normal for women to become emotional and irrational during their third trimester. Sarah felt Rebecca tense beside her. The casual way Marcus dismissed her emotional state as irrational confirmed everything they had discussed about his manipulation tactics. After Rebecca left, Marcus was attentive in a way that now felt sinister. He brought Sarah tea, rubbed her feet, and spoke gently about their daughter's future. Every kindness felt calculated, designed to reinforce her dependence on him while he planned her destruction. That night, Sarah pretended to take her prenatal vitamins, palming the capsule when Marcus wasn't looking. Within an hour, her mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. The fog that had been clouding her judgment lifted, and she realized just how deeply Marcus had been manipulating her body as well as her emotions. She was done being his victim. While Marcus slept, Sarah sent Rebecca a secure message, ready to fight. What's our next move? Rebecca's response came immediately. Game on. Let's destroy him. But neither woman knew that Marcus had cameras in the apartment, or that he'd been monitoring Sarah's phone activity. The war they thought they were starting in secret had already been anticipated by a man who stayed 3 moves ahead of everyone around him. Sarah's second peak of devastation was about to begin. 2 weeks later, Sarah felt cautiously optimistic for the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal. Rebecca had been working tirelessly on her case, gathering additional evidence and building what she called an airtight legal strategy. They met daily, usually at Rebecca's office, carefully planning Sarah's escape from her marriage. The prenatal vitamin drugging is our strongest angle, Rebecca explained during one of their sessions. It establishes a pattern of control and manipulation that goes beyond simple adultery. Combined with the financial fraud and the affair evidence, we can paint Marcus as a dangerous manipulator. Sarah nodded, taking notes in the journal she now carried everywhere. Her mind was sharp again without the sedatives, and she felt like her old investigative journalist self returning. What about custody? Sarah asked. That's what I'm most worried about. With this evidence, no judge in New York would give Marcus primary custody. The drugging alone is enough to establish him as a threat to both you and the baby. That afternoon, Sarah returned to the penthouse feeling genuinely hopeful. She was 8 months pregnant now, her daughter's arrival imminent. Soon, she would be free from Marcus and able to raise their child in safety. But Marcus was waiting for her in the living room, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. Sarah's heart rate spiked, but she forced herself to remain calm. "About what?" Marcus stood and walked to the window, his back to her. "I know you've been meeting with Rebecca. I know you've been investigating me. And I know you think you have evidence of things that could hurt me." The blood drained from Sarah's face. "Marcus, I don't know what you're talking about." He turned around, his smile cold and predatory. "Sarah, sweetheart, I've known about your little investigation from the beginning. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you going through my computer? Or that I wouldn't monitor your phone activity? You've been spying on me." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I've been protecting us," Marcus corrected, "from your increasingly irrational behavior." He pulled out a thick folder and set it on the coffee table. "Dr. Williams has been very concerned about your mental state, the paranoia, the accusations, the obsessive behavior. She thinks you may be experiencing postpartum psychosis early." Sarah stared at the medical records in the folder, her own name on documents she'd never seen. "I've never said any of those things to Dr. Williams." "Memory loss is another symptom," Marcus said gently, like he was speaking to a confused child. "Dr. Williams has been documenting your condition for weeks now. The court will find her testimony very compelling." The room spun around Sarah. Every visit to her obstetrician, every casual comment about feeling tired or emotional, had been twisted into evidence of mental illness. "The prenatal vitamins," Sarah said desperately. "You've been drugging me." Marcus laughed, the sound genuinely amused. "Sarah, those are standard prenatal supplements prescribed by your doctor. The fact that you think I'm drugging you is just more evidence of your paranoid delusions." He pulled out another document. "Dr. Kellerman, the psychiatrist I consulted about your condition, agrees that you need immediate intervention for your safety and the baby's." Sarah realized with horror that Dr. K from Marcus's messages wasn't a co-conspirator providing sedatives. It was a psychiatrist Marcus had been consulting, feeding him carefully crafted stories about Sarah's mental state to build a case for her incompetence. "You've been planning this for months," she whispered. "I've been trying to get you help," Marcus replied. "But you've been resistant to treatment. That's why I had to take preventive measures with the custody arrangements." He showed her legal documents that made her knees weak. Marcus had already filed for emergency custody based on Sarah's alleged mental health crisis. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. "Rebecca will fight this," Sarah said, grasping at her last hope. Marcus's smile widened. "Rebecca has been very helpful, actually. She's provided me with detailed accounts of your conspiracy theories and paranoid accusations. Her testimony will be crucial in establishing your need for psychiatric intervention." The betrayal hit Sarah like a physical blow. Rebecca, her best friend and trusted lawyer, had been feeding information to Marcus all along. "You see, sweetheart," Marcus continued, "Rebecca came to me weeks ago, concerned about your mental state. She's been documenting everything you've said, every wild accusation you've made. She's genuinely worried about your ability to care for our daughter." Sarah sank onto the sofa, her pregnant belly making her movements awkward and clumsy. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Everyone she trusted had betrayed her. "The Instagram video," she said weakly. Victoria's story. What Instagram video? Marcus asked with perfect innocence. Sarah, Victoria is a professional acquaintance. The fact that you've constructed an elaborate fantasy about us having an affair is exactly the kind of delusion Dr. Kellerman warned me about. Marcus sat beside her on the sofa, his voice gentle and concerned. I love you, Sarah. I love our daughter. That's why I'm doing this. You need help, and our baby needs protection. As Sarah sat there, trapped and defeated, she realized the depth of Marcus's manipulation. There had been no affair, no financial fraud, no conspiracy, just a master manipulator who had gaslit his wife so thoroughly that she'd created an entire fictional narrative to explain her husband's carefully orchestrated psychological abuse. Or had she, in that moment of complete despair? Sarah couldn't tell what was real anymore. Sarah spent the night staring at the ceiling, Marcus's gentle breathing beside her like a soundtrack to her mental breakdown. Every memory felt contaminated now. Had she really seen Victoria's Instagram story? Or had her paranoid mind constructed it from fragments of fear and suspicion? The prenatal vitamins sat on her nightstand, innocuous white capsules that looked exactly like every other supplement she'd taken during her pregnancy. The screenshots on her phone seemed damning, but Marcus was right. They could have been fabricated by a desperate, delusional mind. At 6 a.m, Sarah made a decision that would save her life. She called Judge Patricia Williams, her former journalism mentor who now served on the federal bench. Patricia had been like a mother to Sarah during her reporting career, and she was one of the few people Sarah trusted completely. Patricia, it's Sarah Mitchell, she said, when the older woman answered. I need help, and I don't know who else to call. Sarah, it's 6 a.m. Dear, are you all right? I think my husband is trying to have me committed, and I can't tell what's real anymore. There was a long pause. Come to my chambers at 9. Don't tell anyone where you're going. 2 hours later, Sarah sat across from Judge Williams in the older woman's oak-paneled office. Patricia listened without interruption as Sarah told her story. The Instagram video, the secret messages, the financial fraud, Rebecca's betrayal, Marcus's psychological manipulation. When Sarah finished, Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, she said finally, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What you've just described is a textbook case of coercive control and gaslighting. Everything you think you saw was real. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. But Marcus says I'm having delusions. The medical records, Dr. Kellerman's diagnosis. Dr. Kellerman is not a licensed psychiatrist in New York, Patricia said grimly. I checked while you were talking. He's a life coach from California who Marcus paid to create fake medical records. The relief that flooded through Sarah was so intense she nearly collapsed. So, I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, but you are in serious danger. Patricia pulled out a thick file from her desk. Sarah, I've been investigating your husband for 6 months as part of a federal task force. Marcus Kane is running one of the largest cryptocurrency fraud schemes in U.S. history. He's stolen over $200 million from investors. Sarah stared at the documents spread across Patricia's desk. FBI surveillance photos, financial records, recorded conversations. Marcus wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a federal criminal. The affair with Victoria Cross is real, Patricia continued, but Victoria isn't just his mistress. She's his partner in the cryptocurrency scam. They've been using her social media platform to promote fake investment opportunities. Sarah's mind reeled. Why didn't you tell me before? We needed to build an airtight case. And honestly, we didn't know how deep you were in his operations. Many spouses of financial criminals are willing participants. I had no idea. I believe you. Which is why I'm going to help you disappear before Marcus realizes we're on to him. Patricia handed Sarah a burner phone and a thick envelope. Inside is a new identity, cash, and instructions for getting to a safe house. The FBI is moving on Marcus tomorrow, but he's dangerous when cornered. You need to be gone before then. What about the custody hearing, the fake medical records? All fabricated. There is no custody hearing. Marcus was planning to have you committed to a private psychiatric facility where you would have been held indefinitely while he gained legal control of your assets and your daughter. The horror of how close she'd come to losing everything washed over Sarah. Rebecca is being arrested as we speak for her role in Marcus's scheme. She's been embezzling from clients and laundering money through fake legal settlements. Sarah felt the baby kick, a strong reminder of what was at stake. What happens now? Now you disappear. Have your daughter in safety. And when the FBI arrests Marcus tomorrow, you'll be protected witnesses in the biggest financial fraud case of the decade. As Sarah prepared to leave everything behind, Patricia took her hands. I'm proud of you, Sarah. Your investigative instincts were right. You uncovered the truth even when everyone around you was lying. I thought I was losing my mind. That was the point. Marcus is a master manipulator, but he underestimated your intelligence and your strength. That evening, Sarah packed a single bag while Marcus worked late in his office, unaware that his world was about to collapse. She left her wedding ring on the nightstand beside a note. I know who you really are. Our daughter and I deserve better. By midnight, Sarah was in a safe house in upstate New York, finally breathing freely for the first time in months. The next morning, she watched the news as FBI agents arrested Marcus Kane and Victoria Cross in a dramatic raid on their penthouse. The cryptocurrency scheme had defrauded thousands of investors, and Marcus faced decades in federal prison. But Sarah's relief was short-lived, because that afternoon, she received a call from Patricia that changed everything again. Sarah, we have a problem. Marcus escaped federal custody during transport. He's armed, dangerous, and he knows you're alive. The real nightmare was just beginning. Sarah's safe house was supposed to be impenetrable, located in the Adirondack Mountains, surrounded by federal agents. It should have been the one place she could finally breathe. Instead, she found herself trapped in a new kind of prison, watching the news coverage of Marcus's escape while her daughter kicked restlessly in her womb. How does someone just escape from federal custody? Sarah asked Agent Martinez, the FBI handler assigned to her protection. Marcus had resources we didn't know about, Martinez replied grimly. Corrupt guards, offshore accounts, contingency plans. The man planned for every scenario. Disaster struck at precisely 3:15 p.m. Sarah's phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Against Martinez's explicit instructions, she answered. Hello, sweetheart. Marcus's voice was calm, almost cheerful. I hope you're comfortable in your little hideaway. Sarah's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I have many friends, Sarah, some in very surprising places. Did you really think the FBI could protect you from me? Through the cabin window, Sarah could see Agent Martinez speaking urgently into his radio, his face tense with alarm. I know you're listening, Agent Martinez, Marcus continued, as if he could see through the phone. Tell your team to check the north perimeter. I left them a little surprise. The line went dead. Martinez was already shouting orders when the first explosion rocked the mountainside. Sarah felt the cabin shake, saw trees burst into flames through the windows. We need to move now. Martinez grabbed Sarah's arm, but she was 8.5 months pregnant and moving slowly. The second disaster followed immediately. As they rushed toward the reinforced vehicle outside, Sarah felt a sharp, unmistakable pain tear through her abdomen. Her water broke in a flood that soaked through her clothes and pooled on the cabin floor. "The baby's coming," Sarah gasped, doubling over as another contraction hit. "We can't deliver a baby here," Martinez said desperately. "The nearest hospital is 40 minutes away." But Marcus had anticipated this too. As they struggled to get Sarah into the SUV, gunfire erupted from the tree line. The vehicle's windows exploded in a shower of safety glass, and Martinez pushed Sarah to the ground behind the engine block. "Stay down," he ordered, returning fire toward the muzzle flashes in the forest. Sarah lay on the cold ground, contractions racking her body while bullets flew overhead. This was supposed to be the safest place in America, but Marcus had turned it into a war zone. The third disaster came as Agent Martinez fell beside her, clutching his shoulder where blood seeped through his tactical vest. Sarah realized with horror that they were alone, surrounded, and she was going into labor in the middle of a firefight. "Sarah." Marcus's voice echoed through the trees, amplified by some kind of speaker system. "This ends when you come out. I don't want to hurt our daughter, but I will do whatever it takes to bring you home." Sarah pressed herself against the SUV's wheel well, her hands protectively covering her belly as another contraction built. The baby was coming, whether she was ready or not. And Marcus was closing in. Martinez struggled to his feet, his good arm still holding his weapon. "There's a radio in the glove compartment," he whispered. "Channel 7. Call for backup." But when Sarah reached for the radio, she discovered Marcus's final twist. The device crackled to life with his voice, not the FBI's. "I told you I had friends everywhere," Marcus said through the radio. "Did you think the federal government was immune to corruption? I've been tracking you since the moment you left New York." The gunfire stopped, but Sarah could hear movement in the underbrush. Marcus was coming for her, and there was nowhere left to run. As another contraction peaked, Sarah made a decision that went against every instinct for safety. She stood up, her hands raised, and walked into the clearing where Marcus waited with Victoria and two armed men Sarah didn't recognize. "That's my girl," Marcus said, his smile warm and proud as if she'd just done something wonderful. "Now let's go home and have our baby properly." Sarah looked at the man she'd once loved, standing in tactical gear with a rifle slung across his back, and realized she was looking at a stranger who would kill anyone who stood between him and what he wanted, including her, if necessary. But as Victoria moved to restrain her, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt since this nightmare began, a fierce, protective rage that burned away her fear and replaced it with cold determination. Marcus wanted his daughter. He was going to have to fight for her, because Sarah Mitchell Kane was done running, done being afraid, and done underestimating her own strength. The real war was about to begin. The abandoned warehouse in Queens smelled of rust and decay. Sarah sat on a plastic chair, her wrists zip-tied behind her back, contractions coming every few minutes now. Marcus paced in front of her like a caged animal, his earlier composure cracking under the pressure of being a federal fugitive. "This isn't how I wanted it to happen," he said, more to himself than to Sarah. "We were supposed to be a family. You were supposed to trust me. Trust you." Sarah's voice came out stronger than she felt. "You drugged me, gaslit me, and tried to have me committed." Victoria sat nearby, filing her nails with studied indifference. "She's never going to see reason. Marcus, can we just get on with this?" "Get on with what?" Sarah demanded. Marcus stopped pacing and knelt in front of her chair, his eyes bright with the fervor of a man who'd lost touch with reality. "We're going to disappear. Sarah, new identities, new life. Somewhere the FBI can never find us. Our daughter will grow up free from all this mess." "You mean grow up with a father who's a murderer?" Sarah shot back. "How many agents did you kill at the safe house?" "They were trying to keep us apart," Marcus replied, as if that justified everything. "I did what any father would do to protect his family." Another contraction hit, stronger than the others, and Sarah doubled over as much as the restraints allowed. The baby was coming soon, and she was trapped in a nightmare with no medical help, no escape, and a man who'd completely disconnected from reality. "She needs a doctor," Victoria said, looking uncomfortable for the first time. "What if something goes wrong with the delivery?" "I've been reading medical texts," Marcus replied confidently. "I can handle a simple birth." Sarah felt terror like she'd never experienced. Not only was she going to die in this warehouse, but her daughter might die too, delivered by a madman who thought he could learn obstetrics from books. "Marcus, please," Sarah whispered, playing to whatever humanity might be left in him. "Think about our baby. She deserves better than this." For a moment, his expression softened. "She deserves parents who love each other," he said. "We can make this work. Sarah, we just need time to reconnect, away from all the outside interference." Sarah realized with growing horror that Marcus genuinely believed he could force her to love him again. In his twisted mind, she'd been brainwashed by the FBI, by Rebecca, by everyone except him. Once they were alone together, she would remember how much she loved him and they could be a happy family. The delusion was so complete, it was almost pitiable. Almost. "I never loved you," Sarah said quietly. "I loved who I thought you were. But that person never existed." Marcus's face darkened. "The hormones are making you say things you don't mean." "I mean every word. You're a monster, and our daughter will be better off never knowing you existed." The slap came so fast, Sarah didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side, her cheek burning, and she tasted blood where her teeth cut her lip. "Don't make me hurt you," Marcus said, his voice shaking with rage. "I don't want to hurt you, but you're making this so difficult." Victoria stood up, looking genuinely disturbed for the first time. "Marcus, maybe we should reconsider this. She's about to have a baby." "Shut up," Marcus snapped. "This is between my wife and me." But Sarah saw something in Victoria's eyes, fear, maybe even regret. The influencer had signed up for financial fraud and luxury, not kidnapping and violence. She was in over her head, and she knew it. Another contraction hit, this one accompanied by an overwhelming urge to push. Sarah cried out despite herself, the pain unlike anything she'd ever experienced. "The baby's coming now," she gasped. "Marcus, please, I need medical help." Marcus looked between Sarah and Victoria, uncertainty flickering across his face. For all his planning, he hadn't really thought through the practical reality of delivering a baby in an abandoned warehouse. "There's a veterinary clinic 3 blocks away," Victoria said suddenly. "Dr. Patel stays late on Thursdays. He could help." "A veterinarian?" Sarah stared at them in disbelief. "Medical training is medical training," Marcus said, seizing on the idea. "Victoria, go get him. Tell him it's an emergency." "What if he calls the police? Then you'll have to convince him not to." As Victoria left, Sarah felt another contraction building. She was alone with Marcus now, completely at his mercy, about to give birth in the most dangerous possible circumstances, but she was also a mother protecting her child. And that changed everything. "Marcus," she said through gritted teeth, "I need you to cut these restraints. I can't deliver properly with my hands tied." He hesitated, then pulled out a knife and cut the zip ties. Sarah's hands were immediately free, blood rushing back into her fingers. "Don't try anything stupid," Marcus warned, but his attention was divided between watching the door for Victoria's return and monitoring Sarah's condition. Sarah rubbed her wrists, pretending to be weaker than she was. The contractions were intense, but they also gave her a cover for any sounds she might make while planning her escape, because she was going to escape. For her daughter's sake, failure wasn't an option. The question was whether she could do it before the baby arrived, or whether she'd have to fight Marcus while protecting a newborn. Either way, Sarah Mitchell Kane was done being a victim. The storm Marcus had unleashed was about to be answered by a hurricane he'd never seen coming. Dr. Rajesh Patel was exactly the kind of man Victoria could manipulate, middle-aged, lonely, and susceptible to a beautiful woman in distress. He arrived at the warehouse 20 minutes later, carrying a medical bag and looking thoroughly confused about why a veterinary emergency required his attention in an abandoned building. "Where is the animal that requires treatment?" he asked, his Indian accent crisp with concern. Victoria led him inside, where Sarah was now panting through contractions that came every 2 minutes. Dr. Patel took one look at the scene, the pregnant woman, the zip tie remnants on the floor, Marcus pacing with obvious agitation, and understood immediately that he'd walked into a kidnapping. "I need to leave," he said, backing toward the door. Marcus blocked his path, one hand resting on the gun tucked into his waistband. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Doctor, my wife is having our baby, and we need your help. This woman needs a hospital," Dr. Patel said firmly. "I cannot provide adequate care in these conditions." "You'll provide whatever care you can," Marcus replied, his voice carrying an unmistakable threat. Sarah watched the exchange while timing her contractions. Dr. Patel was clearly terrified, but he was also a medical professional who'd taken an oath to help people. She needed to reach whatever courage he possessed. "Doctor," Sarah said during a brief respite between contractions, "my name is Sarah Mitchell Kane. I'm sure you've seen the news about the FBI manhunt." Recognition flickered in Dr. Patel's eyes. He had seen the news reports about Marcus's escape and the ongoing search. "Please help me," Sarah continued. "Not for him, but for my baby." Dr. Patel looked between Sarah and Marcus, weighing his options. Finally, his medical training won over his fear. "I will need clean water, towels, and proper lighting," he said. "And if complications arise, we must get her to a hospital immediately." Marcus nodded eagerly. "Victoria, find everything he needs." As Victoria searched the warehouse for supplies, Sarah caught Dr. Patel's eye and mouthed silently, "Help me escape." The doctor's expression didn't change, but he gave an almost imperceptible nod. What Marcus didn't know was that Dr. Patel had grown up in Mumbai, where kidnapping was a constant threat to anyone with money. He'd learned early how to appear cooperative while secretly working against his captors. "I need to examine the patient privately," Dr. Patel announced. "The father should wait outside while I check the baby's position." "I'm not leaving her alone with you," Marcus said immediately. "Then your baby may die." Dr. Patel replied bluntly. "Stress interferes with labor. Your presence is agitating your wife and potentially endangering the child." It was a masterful manipulation, playing on Marcus's ego and his desire to be seen as a protective father. After a moment of internal struggle, Marcus stepped away to the far end of the warehouse, close enough to intervene, but far enough to give them privacy. Dr. Patel knelt beside Sarah's chair, pretending to examine her while speaking in a whisper so quiet only she could hear. "The baby is in good position, but delivery is still several hours away. We have time to plan. Can you get a message to the FBI? Sarah whispered back. I have a medical alert device in my bag. If I activate it, paramedics will come, and they will bring police. He'll kill you if he finds out. Perhaps, but I cannot allow a child to be born into captivity. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude for this brave man who barely knew her but was willing to risk his life for her daughter. What do you need me to do? She asked. When I activate the device, it will take approximately 15 minutes for help to arrive. You must keep him distracted and calm. If he panics, people will die. Another contraction hit, and Sarah cried out naturally, providing cover for their whispered conversation. There is something else. Dr. Patel continued when the contraction passed. The woman, Victoria. She approached me in the parking lot before bringing me here. She is terrified and wants to escape as badly as you do. Sarah looked across the warehouse to where Victoria sat hunched in a corner, staring at her phone. The influencer who'd seemed so confident and cruel now looked like what she really was, a young woman in over her head with a dangerous man. Can we trust her? Desperation makes unlikely allies, Dr. Patel replied. When the time comes, she may help us. Marcus returned, hovering anxiously. How is she, Doctor? Oh, labor is progressing normally, but slowly. First babies often take many hours to arrive. It was both true and strategic, giving them the time they needed while managing Marcus's expectations. As Dr. Patel continued his pretense of medical care, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced since this nightmare began hope. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was part of a plan. And in a few hours, when help arrived, Marcus Kane would discover what it meant to face a woman who refused to be broken. The final act was about to begin. The medical alert device was no bigger than a garage door opener, hidden in Dr. Patel's stethoscope case. When he activated it at 11:30 p.m., Sarah felt her heart rate spike despite her attempt to remain calm. 15 minutes until rescue arrived, 15 minutes to keep Marcus from discovering their plan, but her daughter had other ideas. Something's wrong, Sarah gasped as a contraction unlike the others tore through her body. This wasn't the gradual progression Dr. Patel had predicted. The baby was coming fast. Dr. Patel's examination confirmed her fears. The cervix is fully dilated. We need to deliver this baby now. Marcus rushed over, his earlier calm replaced by panic. Now, but you said hours. Babies follow their own timeline. Dr. Patel replied, falling into the professional competence that had saved lives across 2 continents. Sarah, I need you to listen carefully. When the next contraction comes, I want you to push with everything you have. Through her pain, Sarah heard something that made her blood freeze. Sirens in the distance, still far off but growing closer. Marcus heard them too. That's the FBI, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Doctor, did you call them? I am delivering a baby, Dr. Patel replied without looking up from his work. That is my only concern. Marcus pulled his gun, pressing it against Dr. Patel's temple. I asked you a question. Marcus, stop. Victoria suddenly stood up from her corner, her phone clutched in her shaking hands. I called them. Not him. Me. The admission hung in the warehouse air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus swung the gun toward Victoria, his face twisted with betrayal. I never signed up for kidnapping, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. The cryptocurrency thing was supposed to be clean. No violence. No one getting hurt. You stupid, selfish. The next contraction hit Sarah like a freight train, and she screamed with the intensity of it. Dr. Patel immediately refocused on her, his hands steady, despite the gun that had been at his head moments before. Push, Sarah. The head is crowning. Sarah bore down with every ounce of strength she possessed, driven by a primal need to bring her daughter into the world safely. Everything else, Marcus's rage, Victoria's betrayal, the approaching sirens, faded into background noise. I can see her, Dr. Patel said, wonder creeping into his voice despite the circumstances. One more push. The sirens were getting closer. Marcus looked between the warehouse entrance and Sarah, calculating his options. In his eyes, Sarah saw the exact moment he decided that if he couldn't have his family, no one could. He raised the gun toward Sarah and the baby. Victoria threw herself between them. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse like thunder. Victoria crumpled to the ground, crimson spreading across her white blouse, but her sacrifice gave Dr. Patel the seconds he needed. Push now, Sarah. With Victoria's blood on the concrete beside her, Sarah pushed with the fury of a mother protecting her child. Her daughter slipped into Dr. Patel's waiting hands, tiny and perfect and screaming with the outrage of the living. She's beautiful, Dr. Patel breathed, quickly clearing the baby's airway. Marcus stood frozen, staring at Victoria's still form, the gun hanging loose in his hand. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked lost, uncertain, almost human. The warehouse doors exploded inward as FBI agents flooded the space, red laser dots dancing across Marcus's chest. Drop your weapon, Agent Martinez commanded, his shoulder bandaged but his voice strong. It's over. Marcus. Sarah held her daughter against her chest, feeling the baby's rapid heartbeat against her own. Her daughter was alive, healthy, safe. Nothing else mattered. Marcus looked at the agents, at Sarah and his daughter, at Victoria's body, the empire he'd built, the elaborate plan he'd constructed, the family he'd tried to force into existence. All of it lay in ruins around him. I just wanted us to be together, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. You wanted control, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite everything she'd endured. You never wanted love. You wanted ownership. Marcus met her eyes for the last time, and Sarah saw something that might have been understanding, or regret, or simply exhaustion. He set the gun on the ground and raised his hands. As the FBI moved in to arrest him, Dr. Patel wrapped Sarah's daughter in his medical coat, whispering a traditional Hindi blessing for new life. What will you name her? He asked softly. Sarah looked down at her daughter, born in violence but carried in love, delivered in darkness but breathing in light. Hope, she said without hesitation. Her name is Hope, because that's what her daughter represented: hope for a future free from Marcus's manipulation. Hope for a life built on truth instead of lies. Hope for love that healed instead of wounded. As paramedics loaded them into an ambulance, Sarah caught a glimpse of Marcus being led away in handcuffs. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, just another criminal who'd overestimated his own power. The billionaire who'd thought he owned the world had discovered that some things, love, truth, a mother's protection, could never be purchased or controlled. Sarah held Hope closer and smiled through her tears. They were finally free. 6 months later, Sarah stood at the window of her new apartment in Denver, watching Hope sleep in a patch of morning sunlight. The baby had her father's dark hair but her mother's determined chin, and she was the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever seen. The witness protection program had given them new identities, but Sarah had chosen to keep her real name. She was done hiding from the truth, and Hope deserved to know who her mother really was. Dr. Patel visited every few weeks, having relocated his practice to Colorado to be closer to the patient who'd changed his life. Victoria had survived her gunshot wound and was serving a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation in bringing down Marcus's cryptocurrency network. She sent letters occasionally, awkward attempts at apology that Sarah read but didn't answer. Marcus himself was serving life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The cryptocurrency scheme had defrauded over $300 million from investors, and his escape had resulted in the deaths of 2 FBI agents. There would be no appeals, no early release, no redemption arc for Marcus Kane. Sarah had returned to journalism, working as a freelance investigative reporter specializing in financial crimes and domestic abuse. Her first article, Inside the Mind of a Financial Predator, had won a Pulitzer Prize and established her as one of the country's leading voices on coercive control. But success felt different now. It wasn't about recognition or career advancement. It was about using her experience to help other women recognize the warning signs she'd missed, to shine light on the sophisticated manipulation tactics that men like Marcus employed. The letters came regularly now, women who'd read her story and recognized their own situations, women who'd been gaslit, controlled, isolated, and made to doubt their own sanity. Sarah answered every one, offering resources, support, and most importantly, validation that they weren't crazy. Every universal dilemma, the choice between love and self-preservation, the fear of being alone versus the danger of staying, was shared by women across the country who found courage in Sarah's story. Every shared experience of manipulation and gaslighting became a thread in a larger tapestry of survival and strength. The wisdom Sarah had gained through her ordeal was simple, but profound. Trust your instincts. Document everything, and never let anyone convince you that your reality isn't real. Sometimes the people we love most are capable of the deepest betrayal, and sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away from everything you thought you wanted. As hope stirred in her crib, Sarah picked up the phone to call her editor. There was another story to write, another woman to help, another predator to expose. The billionaire had thought he could break her, but he'd only made her stronger. And Sarah Mitchell Kane was just getting started. Outside her window, Denver stretched toward the mountains, full of possibility and promise. Hope gurgled in her arms, reaching toward the sunlight streaming through the glass. They were home.